Remember to pick up your copy of the Mirror newspaper. The Mirror newspaper is a weekly paper, provides you with news and information from Guyana and the rest of the world. Information useful to women and children to stimulate thought and encourage mental growth. Pick up your copy of the Mirror today. Ask your newspaper vendor for a copy of the Mirror or visit a Freedom House location in your community, whether in Georgetown, Linden, Berbice, or on the Essequibo Coast. Ask for your copy of the Mirror or visit us online at mirrornewsgy.com. You can also contribute by emailing us at weekendmirror@gmail.com.
You're in tune with Freedom Radio on 91.1 FM, 90.5 FM in the Berbice area, and on 90.7 FM in the Essequibo area. You can also stream us live on freedomradio91.com. Freedom Radio, the radio for you.
Well, a very good day to you, listeners and viewers, and welcome to another program of Talking Point. Today, we have in studio with us again Bishop Juan Edghill, Member of Parliament for the People's Progressive Party Civic. Good day, Bishop Edghill, and welcome to our program once again.
Good day, Raymond, and let me take this opportunity to greet all of our listeners and viewers and let them know it's a joy to be here to share with them necessary information and to interact with them on this program of Talking Point.
Well, before we get into our substantive discussions, we go back again to what is current in the news. This morning's newspaper, Guyana Chronicle, has again raised an issue that one would have thought would have been dealt with some time ago, but it seems as though it's been raised and it's been raised in a pretty vile way. What are your comments on these issues as it keeps going on?
Which one particularly you want me to comment on? Because I noticed the front page.
The front page
article that says "No way."
Mm-hmm.
Just to remind viewers that Mr. Moses Nagamutu, Prime Minister of Guyana, is the one who has ministerial control over information, and he has direct control over the Chronicle. So if you have a meeting that was held in a cordial environment where His Excellency President Granger wanted to ensure that public order, public safety, public services, public good, and we think about the good of the public in our actions and all the rest of it as the paramount item
on
the agenda, how we can ensure that there is calm and we don't expose our country to some kind of a impression of a failed state and all the rest of it. And then having had that discussion, a communique was worked on by two teams, and even before the finality of that communique, the government newspaper paid for the state newspaper.
I think that a lot of people are getting confused, especially with the way that it's being reported. Yeah.
The state newspaper, which falls under the ministerial portfolio of the Prime Minister, projects who was part of the talks.
Who was part of the talks?
Who was part of the talks? Big headline, "No way," triumphalism, as if the PPP was making some demand
that was
unreasonable and that was rejected, which is nothing of the sort. Because opposition leader David Granger, opposition leader Barjagdio, said to President Granger, "We are standing by Article 106, 6, and 7. The government must resign. You become a caretaker government, and elections should be called within 90 days as of December 21.
Which is March 19.
Out to date. That was clear. You know what the president said? He is getting advice and the concern of the word upon in Article 106, 6, upon the successful passage. And the president, in a very cordial environment, says, what does it mean? That we resign on midnight of the 21st? Do we resign on the 22nd? Do we resign on the 18 days after? When do we resign? 1 month after? The president, the president has conceded that his government has to resign.
It's just a matter
of when.
Him deciding when.
When.
Or understanding when it is.
When. And it is the confusion of the people like Moses Nagamoto, who sits around him, and the Attorney General, Basil Williams, that is confusing the gentleman upon when the resignation has to take place. But people must understand that resigning does not mean that
you have to demit office
immediately. You demit office immediately.
Please go into case.
Because Article 106.7 says you shall continue, notwithstanding your resignation. You will continue.
It's like giving 3 months notice of your resignation.
And this is the caretaker status, or a lame duck status. The president never disputed that. What the president had more concern about is what date we have elections. And the date that we have elections would be determined by the operational readiness of the GCOM. And that is why two teams, one headed by our Chief Whip, Gail Teixeira, and the other headed by the government Chief Whip, Amna Ali, is to meet with the GCOM Secretariat for them to put out the operational program. How much days you need to print ballot papers? How much time you need to get the list, the official list of electors prepared? How much time you need to get your logistics in place? All in keeping with the constitutional consequences that elections should be kept within 90 days. The president, understanding that we don't know from GCOM yet about operational readiness, sought to give assurance that we should keep the National Assembly in place, because just in case that we need to go beyond the 90-day period, of which opposition leader has already said he don't mind going 1 week or 2 weeks or even a month. I think that was his exact words. We will need to do that by a 2/3 majority in the Parliament.
Which means that he doesn't want to dissolve Parliament now.
Right.
Because if you dissolve Parliament, you have to have the
election within a particular time frame. And we don't know if GCOM administratively would be able to function. Because we don't just want an election. And I believe every Guyanese need to hear that. We want free and fair elections. Because you know the fears that exist out there about rigging. So we want free and fair elections. So I am aware that Madam Gail Teixeira has already contacted Miss Amna Ali for them to be able to jointly approach GCOM to get this presentation on their administrative and operational readiness. So all this hogwash, as if the Prime Minister and the Chronicle is trying to convey this morning, is that if the government stays there, and they will probably be there in 2020, and the court case could be dragged out. The second thing was clear. Leader of the opposition emphasized to Mr. Granger, and he never disputed that the court is a separate branch of government, but the Constitution is supreme. And the Constitution has already said, upon the successful passage of a motion of no confidence, you got to resign and hold election within 90 days. The Speaker has already declared that the motion is carried. He has been approached to reverse it. He says he declined to review it. So that decision stands. There is no decision or instruction from anywhere else that exists to prevent the Constitution from being obeyed. And we left that meeting yesterday with that clear understanding, and I'm sure the President and all of his team has that clear understanding. The courts of Guyana, it is a creature of the Constitution. It is not the Constitution is a creature of the court. The court is not supreme. It is the Constitution that is supreme. So all the 33, 34 issues, and whether Charon Das is dual citizen, or if they got other dual citizens in Guyana, and all the other things, that is matters for the future. Event took place. A successful passage of a no confidence motion. Within 90 days is election. GCOM must be able now to say what they have done or what they need and how much time they need to ensure that everything is done administratively correct, and that we will be able to have free and fair elections within the understanding of the Constitution. If it is going a few weeks beyond the 90 days, well, then we return to Parliament, and both sides will agree that we're not going beyond this time.
And therefore you make the 2/3 majority will vote to extend the time.
And we both sides agreed that the current voters list that we went to local government elections is valid until April 30th. So elections must be held
before April
30th.
Because if you go beyond April 30, then you have to get a new list.
You got to get a new list.
Which means that you have to go back
and
into
any
cycles
attempt,
and all of that.
And we've the president, the former president, the leader of the opposition also set the president games here. We have a clear understanding that after 90 days, you're unconstitutional, you're illegal, you're illegitimate. Do you want us to enter into that phase? Former president, I keep saying, former president Jack Dio was very clear. Everything that he said before, in a cordial, respectful attitude, was said to President Granger and his team. And they fully understand that we expect constitutional compliance. So they need to ceremonially say we have resigned and we are now in the phase of 106.7 where we are taking care of matters of state to ensure public safety, public order, public good, services are maintained, everybody gets paid, and we are setting a date for elections. And that is why this meeting with GCOM is very important and must be done with some amount of dispatch. So that's the first thing about the Guyana Chronicle. But I don't know if there's anything otherwise, because the Guyana Chronicle has become an example of yellow journalism. Yellow journalism. I have also noticed that they have another article today, which is alleging that about some racist remark that I would have made in Linden. That matter has been dealt with. Raymond, I have put out a statement. This never happened. It is clear. This is reverse racism. This is what is called reverse racism. When you study it, it is reverse racism. Bishop Juan Edghill is of Afro-Guyanese extraction. He works in Linden. The PPPC has been making inroads in Linden and Region 10. Afro-Guyanese are flocking to the PPPC. They voted for the PPPC in the local government elections of 2018. The PPPC now has a seat at the table at the mayor and town council of Linden. The fear is, through the message that we went, the activism of our comrades in Linden, where we went from house to house, community to community, which caused only 1 in every 5 Lindeners who are major supporters of the PNC.
The PNC boasts
about that. They have transport for Linden, they say. Only 1 out of every 5 took courage to go out and vote. People have turned away from them. People are ashamed to be associated with the APNU, AFC. They had ministers up there. At least 3 ministers are in Linden every week. At least 3 ministers are in Linden every week, trying to do everything, trying to beg and cajole. And the people of Linden are unresponsive. You've had a situation where they sought to mobilize 4 30-seater buses, which would have been about 120 persons, to come to Georgetown on the 24th of December to give solidarity to the government when we were debating the no confidence motion. One 30-seater bus with about 20 persons inside and a 15-seater bus that was not filled is what came down. So they didn't get what they were looking for. They had on radio, WhatsApp, going around promising people food and all the rest of it, to bring another set of people down for the January 3rd. They got a sprinkling of people to come. So they are concerned that even though we don't have access to television, because they don't give us access to television, and NCN has never sought a comment from me as a member of parliament who's working in Region 10 about anything to do with Region 10. As a matter of fact, even what I say in the parliament is not carried by NCN and shown in Region 10. Even when I'm making representation for people in Kokwani and the foresters and the people in Region 10 about the creation of jobs, nothing. So there's a complete news blackout. So it is a clear case now where they are practicing racism by saying to Londoners and to Afro-Guyanese, here with this black man saying about you, he don't like black people. He is with them PPPC people. That is the racism of the Chronicle that must be condemned by every reasonable Guyanese who understand what is going on. And you know what they did in today's Chronicle? They get 2 MPs and 2 other APNU supporters. They haven't gone back to Mr. Blair and Mr. Lorem and says, look, you said something and we publish it. Bishop Edghill has rejected it. The Region 10 Regional Executive Committee of the PPPC has rejected it. It will never happen. This is a total fabrication. They didn't go back to them to say, but you said something to us. Could you verify and bring any additional evidence to support what you're saying? No. They got 4 PNC types to make comments on something that is already debunked.
That's a lie.
And they've increased the column space of the story as if repeating a lie over and over will make it the truth. But this Chronicle is, through that article, you could see through it. They are peddling racism.
There's also an article, I mean, you're a member of parliament for the PPPC, but about this man Schumann.
Yes.
Who is
also
forming a political party on his own. And there also seems to be a violent attack against him also.
Because that is the state of affairs. This is panic. This is a government that is desperate. Raymond, I could understand if something is being said and it got some truth and you're spinning it. But when something didn't happen at all, never happened.
And that's the hardest type of lie to
so it is not a spinning of what was said. It is something that never happened. And the Chronicle.
But are you concerned, as a member of parliament, as a politician, are you concerned that, because there's always concern about how journalists put out stories, and the fact of the matter is that they have the ability to influence behavior in a particular way. But this is now the state newspaper, which is supposed to be held at a higher standard because of the fact that the agenda of each newspaper, each radio station, each media house is based on its board and its owners and benefactors. But this is a state newspaper which is supposed to be promoting harmony and unity in the country. Are you, as a member of parliament, concerned about it?
Very concerned.
What, if anything, that you can do? Because I think one of the things that the leader of the opposition said yesterday, coming out of the meeting, was the agreement that they will turn down the rhetoric and that any allegations that are made must be supported by evidence.
Well,
this is the next day.
Well, I can tell you, my good friend, I would say, because he's a pretty nice gentleman, even though we are political opponents, Vice President Carl Greenwich raised the issue about rhetoric and tone The leader of the opposition, Dr. Barjad, you wasted no time in pointing out to the president that it is his ministers who have been making unsubstantiated and uncorroborated allegations. He spoke about the allegations by Norton that says,
which is ridiculous,
that says Jagdeo bribed Charandas. He spoke about the Attorney General saying that we had 5 other moles that were compromised that were supposed to vote for the no confidence motion. He spoke about the rhetoric that took place Christmas Eve night at the Stabrook Market, going back again about 400 black men that were killed by the PPPC. You know what the president said? He's committing the 6 parties to ensure that there be no continuation of unsubstantiated allegations in the media. The president said so yesterday in the presence of Moses Nagamutu.
Is it a case where there's a fracture, where the president really do not have control, or there are people running rogue?
I don't want to say the president don't have control, because if the president don't have control, then he's not the president.
Or is he saying something and still...
They have to determine that. If they're saying one thing to us at face value, and then they're doing something differently, which is what I've been talking about their hypocrisy. Even in the debate of the no confidence motion, I spoke about the hypocrisy. The scribes and the Pharisees, Jesus pronounced against them. They demand of you a standard that they themselves don't hold. They demand of people to do things that they themselves are not prepared to do. They demand of you to be what they themselves are not prepared to be. And this is the state of this APNU AFC government. So you have an unsubstantiated statement, an uncorroborated statement, because you want to have political mileage, or you want to have a political advantage. You don't mind destroying somebody and even using racism and reverse racism.
Which is not only destroying the person, but it has the potential to create serious issues in a country like ours that already suffers from racial insecurity.
And listen to one of the, and I don't want to get personal because there's a lot that I could say about the persons who made comments today. But the junior minister of communities, Ms. Valerie Harewood, she admitted that 2,000 people voted for the PPPC in Linden. That shows a real concern. 2,000 Lindeners voting for the PPPC. She can't live with that. In 2015, Edghill worked in Linden. 2018, Edghill worked in Linden. And for 2019, because just Monday of this week, I had a big meeting with our activists and the rest of it in Linden, almost 75 persons in attendance for us to be able to start rolling out our strategy and all the rest of it, and making sure they got feedback that despite the resignations of Akani Blair or Lorimer, not even their resignations, they're walking because they would have been dealt with by the party disciplinary arm anyhow for their behavior and their conduct, which the regional committee pointed out in a statement. Despite of those actions, the people were solid in their support of getting the campaign going in Region 10. So they got feedback. So they're using a journalist. I'm sure that writer got a call, take in some comments from these people and prepare a story. And then Raymond, look at it. I'm in Linden working in a political environment. You know what's the photograph they put in the papers today? Me in ecclesiastical garb. So they're also even trying to attack religion. He's a church leader. And they put me decorated in my ecclesiastical garb in a political story. So they also want to create confusion even in the church. This church leader is a racist. So his constituency of Christianity that he has some leadership and influence over must come against him. The 2,000 plus people who voted for the PPPC in Region 10 in 2015, and the several hundreds who voted in 2018 of the local government elections must see this figure, who they can't find any other scandal on, because they've been searching and searching and searching, because, you know, the Chronicle is being used to damage reputations, and they're trying to, they can't find anything, but let us see if we could tie in to being a racist. And then the possibility of he emerging as one of the key leaders in the PPPC in the 2019 construct as an Afro-Guyanese. Let's ensure that we damage his chances, his voice, and that is what this campaign is all about. And it must be condemned in its strongest possible form.
I know we haven't gotten to corruption, but the calls are already coming in. Good morning, you're on to Talking Point.
Hi, good morning. This is Talking Point.
Yes, you're on to Talking Point.
Sorry about that.
Okay. Yes, I know we're supposed to be going to, we're dealing with the issues of corruption and so on. And even though we're talking about...
But that is a form of corruption.
Because
the misuse of state resources to carry out narrow political agenda, whether it's a DPI, whether it's NCN or the Chronicle, is a form of corruption.
Good morning, you're on to Talking Point.
Good morning, Raymond. Good morning, Mr. Head.
Good morning.
This guy, Moses, not I don't want to use the word thing. He's the guy who is bringing down the new government. And I tell you what. I can remember when Mr. Sam Hines and Mr. Granger was to make a statement about the electricity rates in London. This same guy, the AFC, went to London and tell the people in London that Mr. Granger is selling out the people in London. This guy is a troublemaker, and he will do anything to maintain his position. But time is catching up on him. And the other thing is, the President Granger mentioned about controlling his ministers, about rhetoric or whatever the word is, right? And immediately, the next day, as you rightly mentioned, there is rhetoric in the Chronicle. This shows you clearly that this guy is bringing down the new government and is making black people look stupid. Because I had conversation with some African friends of mine about this whole political situation. And you know what they're saying? They're saying that what wrong with black people, man? How President Granger can do them things and so forth and so on. Right? So the problem lies, Mr. Granger has to take a stand. The buck stops at him. And if he doesn't, he's going to look very small in the eyes of Guyanese people. Thank you very much, Comrade.
Thank you. Yes, you're talking about the use of the resources of state.
Yes.
As a form of corruption.
It is corruption. It's almost like financing a campaign. Because what the Chronicle is seeking to do is to influence behavior, thinking, and actions. Now, I am not going to get into a dark fight with anybody about what the Chronicle is seeking to project. My life is an open book. I did not come to public life yesterday. I'm in public life for years. I've been a bishop since 1995, so you could do the count. I have chaired the Guyana Council of Churches. I've been the chairman of the Ethnic Relations Commission. I've been a minister of the government. I've been a public figure speaking all over this country. My life is an open book. The Chronicle, with its small readership, is seeking to agitate and is seeking somehow to influence opinion and direction in a particular way. And it is the use of state funds, the DPI and the NCN, that is using state resources to fund narrow political agendas. Raymond, you will recall that in the examination of the estimates of budget 2019, I dealt with the issue of what is going on at the DPI. You have a gentleman who's the general secretary, I think, of the AFC, who's engaged both at DPI and at NCN. His wife is engaged as a senior personnel at the DPI, even though she's not qualified above others who were there before. He is being engaged in doing layout for newspapers. And I asked the question in the parliament. The husband and wife were sitting together right behind the prime minister when I asked him the question. And he said he don't know that the two people are related. And even if they are related, what is so wrong about the man getting work? You check the hierarchy of the Chronicle. Check the hierarchy of DPI. Check the hierarchy of NCN. It is the AFC's outfit. And that is how they have shared up government. You see this Hermanston Accord? You have Imran Khan, who works with the Prime Minister at DPI. His wife is in the office of the Prime Minister. So then you have this Leonard and this other girl. And you could go on and on and on. All of the top people, the whole AFC executive is employed but in the state media, in the state apparatus. That's how they get their funding. So it is a form of corruption, number one. You are paying your executive members because out of state funds, and they're not doing state work. They're doing political party work under the direction of who they call their elder statesman. And this is vulgar. And people must start seeing this for what it is.
And this is not only against the PPP.
No,
this is against anybody who dares.
And I dare suspect.
I remember how
it is even against some APNU people that the AFC have problems with. Because you could also look at how the Chronicle deals with certain ministers and certain persons, the exposure and the comments that they make. But that's their own internal problem.
Good morning, you're on to Talking Point.
Yeah, good morning, Mr. Raymond and Mr. Edghill.
Good morning.
Good morning. I have a point to make. The whole country, each and every single Guyanese in this country, is seeing what the absolute AFC government is doing. And all they're doing is to make things worse for themselves. They're making it worse for the PPP. They're making it worse for the Guyanese people. All they're doing is making it worse for themselves because everybody expected yesterday that the president would have tell the opposition leader, well, look, we're drawing back this court action and let me go ahead with the election. But he's not a man free word. You know how? So that is my point.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Well, Raymond, let me just explain. The president used these words. He said the court action is irreversible. That's strong words. It's irreversible. And leader of the opposition said to him, well, your attorney general did say that he's filing these court actions to strengthen your hands at the talks. But it seemed that the attorney general, something is really not...
No, he's a very honest fellow. He says exactly what he thinks.
Oh, that is it. He's very honest. Okay.
Yeah, he's very honest. He says exactly as he thinks. Yeah.
So he's saying that we file this action to strengthen your hand to the talks. But the schedule for elections is not determined by the court action. The schedule for elections is determined by the Constitution. 90 days.
Good morning. You're on to Talking Point.
Good morning. One, right? And the other opposition side, that's what you do. Very long ago, how the opposition decide that is that a third party, that's a third party, so they click something else. How the opposition decide something like that against the ruling party, knowing that the ruling party got both people are there, let's study, we're aware that somebody from the other side, some person on the other side will join them. Let's take care of this. Thank you.
Well, let me just say to this caller, he needs to be educated. A government member could have moved a no confidence motion against the government. Of course, they would have recalled it before
The motion
was heard. The opposition could move a motion of no confidence. That's what the leader of the opposition did. And any person in the House got a right to vote yes or no. This was not an academic exercise. A no confidence motion is provided for in our Constitution. And if an opposition could move a motion of no confidence in a government because people have lost confidence, it is the expectation that people in the government would have also recognized that the people don't want this current government to stand, so that you have to go back and get a new mandate. This is not putting Barry Jagdeo as president on the 22nd of December. This is an occasion for new elections where you have to go back to the electorate and get a new mandate. And that is what this PNC-controlled PNU-AFC coalition is afraid of, going back to elections. It is provided for in the Constitution, and who governs Guyana after the next 71 days got to do with what the electorate says.
Good morning, you're on to a talking point.
Morning. Good morning, Mr. Edghill.
Good morning.
Sir, the Guyanese people recognize you as a great fighter for this country. You are the only person stand up in the parliament and tell them that you are not giving up what the general public put you to defend. And that will be recognized in this country. And whatever you are saying there, you are correct, sir. And Chinese people will support you continuously. Thank you very much.
Thank you, caller. I guess that's a member of my fan club, but I'm not here in a popularity contest today. I'm here to deal with the issue.
No,
thank you for coming.
We're going back to the whole issue surrounding this voting, because there's another, you see, and this is one of the things that I'm afraid of as a journalist. The Guyana Chronicle, NCNDPI being
corruption
used,
in the state media. That's
being
what we're talking
used
about.
because the emphasis that they made about a person on the government side being incapable of voting against the government, and pointing that the Constitution says this, which is quite erroneous. That is
Totally
not what
wrong.
the Constitution says. Misinforming the public, which in my mind creates, it's an effort to create public mischief, because you're giving people unrealistic expectations, and you're telling people that this wouldn't happen and this will happen. And when the time comes and people realize that, look, my expectations have not been realized, and then you point and say, those are the persons who cause your expectations to not be realized, then you create that antagonistic behavior, which is extremely dangerous. I often remember the Rwanda case.
Yep.
And I am personally of the view that someday some journalist in Guyana is going to face the International Tribunal for something like that, because we continue as journalists.
Raymond, I recall Ronald Waddell. And I had a cordial relationship with Ronald Waddell. Was hosting programs on Channel 9 while I was chairman of the Ethnic Relations Commission. And it was brought to our attention about some of the things you were saying. We sent for Ronald Waddell. We sent for the management of Channel 9. They came with their lawyers. Mr. Harmon was one of those lawyers. And you might be surprised to know that Channel 9 made an undertaking to the Ethnic Relations Commission. Number one, that the Advisory Committee on Broadcasting must provide training for all independent operators who go to their channel, that they be guided by rules that we will agree on, that they will ensure that this kind of a thing never continue, and all the rest of it. The only person who was making some trouble was the late Benjamin Gibson, who's also my very good friend, very senior lawyer. And he said, you can't do no man nothing. You can't do freedom of speech. And he was trying to agitate. But he also understood. And you know what was what I brought to their attention? That same case you're talking about, Rwanda. We don't want a Rwanda scenario in Guyana. And I'm surprised.
But this is a state media, and that is what is worrying.
I am surprised because of the desperate nature of, some of the AFC people know this is their last opportunity. They're a lost cause. If the PNC goes to the election by themselves, they will be in opposition. The AFC wouldn't even get a seat. They're gone. Their future is dead. Their career is damaged because of this incestuous approach to the politics that they've been involved in.
Because they've even alienated their own supporters, which is one of the reasons why
the no confidence motion
went,
and Charadas voted in favor of the opposition file vote. But they came to the parliament for money to fund the DPI, to fund NCN. And that money, which is taxpayers' money, I want people to understand this taxpayers' money is being misused to attack political opponents, to degrade and denigrate, and to use derogatory terms to describe any person that they pick on and would like to defeat, even within their own camp, especially as it relates to the APNU, but that's not my business as a PPPC MP to disclose the war that is going on between the AFC, AP, and Union Media, because if you read the Chronicle, there are some ministers who don't get no coverage. And whenever they get coverage, it's only in the negative manner. And that's the doings of the Chronicle and Moses Nagamoto and his DPI and his NCN. But I'm not concerned. So here in the state media, the president has a media unit that is headed by Mr. Archer. State money is paying them. They look after all the president's releases and all the rest of it. Then you have the DPI. Then every minister have their own PR and communications person. Do you know how much money is being expended by taxpayers' money to pay these professionals? $500,000, $750,000, $1 million. The CEO of NCN, Mr. Corner, just before he left, was making $1 million. I don't know what the one who's acting, who's also chairman, and who's all in all, you have to say the almighty at NCN, what he's making. Then you get paid for hosting programs. Then you have this person who's an executive director. Then you get work at DPI. And the Prime Minister says 80,000, I think was the figure he used for every publication. And these are all people within your own bosom. So when the AFC has a meeting of their executive, it is a staff meeting of the state media. A staff meeting of the state media. That taxpayers are paying them.
Good morning, you're on to Talking Point.
Good morning. Hello?
Yes, you're on to Talking Point.
Good morning. Just calling concerning an article I read in the Culture News today by Report Book. The attack against the coalition for selfish reasons.
Which commission?
If this guy continue with this type of writing...
You have to speak, you have to put your mouth a little closer to the phone. We're hardly hearing you.
I'm calling concerning about an article I read today in the Culture News. Titled The Attack Against the Coalition for Selfish Reasons.
Okay.
By Rick Ford
Burke.
The Burke, yes, right? And I'm going to quote a paragraph what he said. He said the PPP have made a serious miscalculation. The AFC coalition have hundreds of thousands of supporters. They have ignited a shimmering underground volcanic activities that may have awakened the spirit of the Jamaican Maroons in Guyana. Heaven helps Guyana if it erupts. Now if this guy continue with this type of writing, there's going to be an uprising in Guyana.
The gentleman has a right to express his view. However, there are consequences when what you're doing is inciting and exciting people into ethnic insecurity or into ethnic conflict. Mr. Burke historically has been an agitator, someone who always there taking snipes. So we will defend Mr. Burke's right to express his views. And I don't believe that he should be shut down. But we should ensure that a competent authority, having listened and seen what he is saying, whether on Facebook or in the mainstream media, need to take the necessary action to ensure, number one, that mischief is not carried out, and the sanctions that are necessary for him to face, that he faces them. And the Ethnic Relations Commission has a media monitoring unit.
Yeah, but that is what I'm surprised at, that they have not acted or said anything about these things. They only said, oh, tone down the rhetoric, but now the rhetoric is being hyped up.
Well, I don't want...
They're not saying anything.
I don't want to go and for it to make comments yet, and I'm using this language very guardedly, yet, about the lackluster, sloth, laissez-faire, disconnected approach of the Ethnic Relations Commission since they have been installed. But I am making a call to them today. If the people in the media monitoring unit at the Ethnic Relations Commission are not operating with a level of professionalism and competence, they must be removed immediately and make sure we have professionals there who are dealing with this matter. Because the Ethnic Relations Commission is a referee in this political environment. They are a referee. And you can't have a referee when you're seeing fouls. You're closing your eye on one side and you're calling fouls on the other side. I sat there as the chairman, and Mr. Donald Ramatar, who became president, will tell you he had to bring in people from the PPP to the Ethnic Relations Commission to deal with things that we were concerned about. Mr. Oscar Clark, who was General Secretary of the PNC, will also tell you that he had to bring in people to the Ethnic Relations Commission to deal with matters as it relates to members of his team. Because when you're a referee, you can't close your eye to the fouls, no matter who committed. Wrong is wrong. And I'm putting the Ethnic Relations Commission on notice. We are watching. We believe that you have a role. We want to encourage you in your role. The PPPC has been making complaints to the Ethnic Relations Commission for investigations and all the rest of it. I have personally filed a complaint against Mr. Christopher Jones about some remarks he made just the same day before we debated the no confidence motion, and we will continue to make complaints. But if the members of the media and campaign monitoring unit, I think that's what I call it, media and campaign and rallies monitoring unit, there are people who are supposed to monitor the newspapers. When I left there, that unit was still in place. Who need to monitor what's in the newspapers, bring it to the attention of the commission. People who need to monitor every program, including this one that I'm on, they should be listening and seeing if this Freedom Radio or any other radio or television is sowing seeds of racism and the rest of it, and to take necessary action. And if they're not doing their work, well, then change them and put in competent people. But we will not sit and be silent to allow this kind of a disconnected, lack of interest, non-engagement, laissez-faire, whatever comes to do. There are 10 commissioners there now. 10. And they need to get busy with their work.
231-9546 and 231-9547 is the number to call. You're listening to Talking Point, and we have Bishop Juan Edghill in studio. Good morning, you're on to Talking Point.
Good morning, Raymond. Edghill, I know when you were the chairman of the ERC, you used to go in every village and seek residents' opinion. How can we improve the ERC? So Bones, you have done a very good job when you were chairman of the ERC. And God would bless you because, from my understanding, you want to allow Guyanese to freely express their views, but in a manner that would not cause ethnic dividement or ethnic problems. And this is what Guyana needs. It's a young nation. It needs every Guyanese to put their shoulder to the wheel and let us get our country moving. You guys are doing a very good job. And keep the good work going, and you would get the respect from the guys. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Colin. We're talking about the way the media is being used. One of the issues that have been affecting us also, when the PPP was in government, there were also accusations that about access to the media, the opposition claiming that they didn't have access to the media and all these different things. There was talk about the handing out of radio license and all these different things, which were accusations leveled against the PPP government. What is different now, in your view, as compared to them?
Raymond, I keep saying it over and over. The worst of the PPPC is still miles and lengths above the best of this APNU AFC government. When we were having the budget debates, NCN DPI had their whole studio, live recordings and everything out there. They were only talking to government MPs. Myself, Madam Gail Teixeira, and my colleague Irfan Ali stood up and we watched it. And Madam Gail Teixeira said to the person, "I'm ready to give a comment whenever you are ready." You know what the girl said? "I have to seek clearance."
To get a comment?
She had to make a call to someone. Who made a call to someone? Who made a call to someone? And then the information came back and it said, only government MPs. Did you see DPI or NCN take any comment from any opposition MP during the budget debate or the consideration of the estimates? Zero. You know, when we were in government, Raymond, we invited them to the debate at NCN.
No, well, I remember because I worked at Guyana at the time, and I covered Parliament, and I could remember doing the weekly program where we did a roundup of what transpired in Parliament, and we basically showed the views of both sides because we recognized that this was information for the nation. This was not propaganda.
Well, they have reduced it to pure propaganda. And you will recall when I was Minister within the Ministry of Finance, I answered for the office of the President in the Parliament on all financial matters. NCN, Gina, came under the office of the President. They asked every question, the salaries of everybody at Gina. They want to know the names. They cut the budget, saying that we were not providing coverage to them. They cut it to $1. If you remember,
and that
Gina
was not quite so because I covered Parliament.
Gina was cut to $1. Moses Nagamutu was in the corner with his scissors, showing me cut, we gonna cut. Moses Nagamutu led the assault on Gina. All they have done is that they have changed the name from Gina to the DPI. And in changing the name, they have used the money that was traditionally allocated for state information and state broadcasting to become a fund, a slush fund for political campaigning. So DPI is the slush fund. DPI's funds that is provided in the budget is a slush fund for political campaigning for the AFC.
We have just about 5 minutes more to go. I've had two of your colleagues here for this week, and they have both pointed out, and this is coming to the Ministry of Health, the Sussex Street bond. That the Sussex Street bond having been closed, that there is some information coming out.
There's another Princess Street bond.
That a bond is being moved to Princess Street.
They have closed down the Larry Singh $12.5 million a month rental bond. And our understanding, it's something about that area.
That particular area.
So we're now hearing that there is a bond in Princess Street. But you know, I wrote a letter to the media not so long ago, even talking about the drugs that was at the hotel. Because one street man said, you know, Edghill, you're bright, but you're not really bright, you know. Them drugs that was in the hotel room, that was in storage, buddy. That was where it was being sold from. If somebody check in to check out.
Oh.
The drugs is at the room. So when you check in the hotel, you check in with a suitcase, but then you check in out.
Okay.
That is what they were doing.
Okay.
The Ministry of Health is a cesspool of corruption. The minister who is there now, with all of the pharisaic, and for those who might think that my language is too highfalutin, the pretense and the fancy smile and the using of the Lord's name and cloaking wickedness under godliness and a godly approach, it's only a matter of time. It's only a matter of time. But every wickedness that is done in darkness will come to light. So I am saying to the Guyanese people, we are available. You know, you've seen the movement. Contact us. And that's what happened with HDM Labs. Because we got the information about all the corruption and all the rest of it. And then they start accusing people from inside. But we got whistleblower legislation in this country, comrades. We have whistleblower legislation. And we are saying to people, when you see something, let us know. We got to stop this extravagance, and we also have to stop the wastage. Because this Granger-led government is one of the most corrupt administrations this country has ever seen. And that's one of the reasons why people have no confidence in them. That is why we have to go back to elections. That is why we must get out there. I would like the Minister of Public Health to go out there and tell the people with all of the things that she would have done and said, vote for us. We will make sure that you become PNC so that PNC people could get jobs.
We have just about a minute left. Bishop Edghill, closing words.
My closing words to us, and especially to all the viewers and listeners here, prepare for elections. Start preparing for elections. Get yourself in elections mode. Stop being deceived by this government propaganda and 33, 34 and dual citizenship. The event is over. The no confidence motion has been successfully passed. The legislative branch has pronounced that the vote is carried. The Constitution says elections within 90 days. Everybody around the world is aware of this. GCOM is aware of this. GCOM have to get themselves administratively and operationally ready. And let us get free and fair elections on the road. And I say to all my APNU AFC friends, if your leaders are so popular and your government is so popular, don't be afraid of elections. Just re-elect them. Let's go to the elections and give them a bigger majority. Let the electorate decide who they want to govern Guyana from here. Because this government has fallen, the event is over. So there's no ifs and buts about it. It's elections. Let's prepare for elections. Start talking to people. Get yourself in place. Those of you need to volunteer to the PPPC. Come in and volunteer. Those of you need to get yourselves organized in the various communities. We're on the road to taking this country back because we expect the people of Guyana to give us a mandate, and we will form the next government. And we will be a government of inclusion, that we are a government of inclusion, where we represent all people. And Raymond, I need to say, don't fall for race baiting. Don't get involved in racism or reverse racism. Let's keep our comments clean. We have sufficient on our track record to argue our case. We don't have to go to the base of racism. That's an old PNC strategy. The PPPC must lift itself morally and every other way into ensuring that we're a party, the standard bearer that embraces all people, and we will work together as a government of inclusion for all the people of Guyana. So thank you for having me over this morning again.
Thank you very much, Bishop Edghill. You've been watching another program of Talking Point. I am Raymon Cummings. I had as my guest today Bishop Juan Edghill. Do join us at 11 hours and 19 hours daily for another program of Talking Point.